Good evening, everyone. I'm Miranda. Welcome to my bariatric journey. And today, actually, my friend and I have been talking for weeks about making a turkey shepherd's pie. She really loves shepherd's pie, and it's just one of the recipes that really can't make bariatric friendly because it calls for ground beef and potatoes and butter and cheese and all those delicious, yummy things that are just so not the greatest for you. So what I've done is I've scoured the internet and looked and looked and looked, and actually the best recipe I could find, there were quite a few turkey shepherd's pie recipes, don't get me wrong, there were lots of them. The best one I could find was on delish.com. It calls for like things like white wine, and I've actually gotten an alcohol-free white wine from our local grocery store that I'm going to try. It says it's made with Chardonnay grapes. It's de-alcoholized wine, naturally flavored, which has a lot less of the sugar than regular wine has, and the calories are better as well. So I'm making it with that. It calls for yogurt. I'm going to be using the skyr yogurt that I always use for these types of recipes. And lots of other great things as well, vegetables wise. But I'm using the very little bit, about a cup of the low-fat cheddar cheese for this. It actually, the original recipe calls for Monterey Jack, which I think would be delicious, but I didn't have any. So we're going to go with cheddar today, but that is one of the other things that I'm making a little bit lower fat. It does have potatoes in it, though. We have peeled and quartered 6 medium-sized potatoes for this recipe that's going to go on top. So just remember, with your 1 cup portion, you want to kind of limit your potatoes and have more of the meat mixture because that's more of your protein in there. So that's what I'm making today is the turkey shepherd's pie. Shepherd's pie is one of my favorite homemade comfort food recipes. What are your favorite comfort food recipes? Please comment in the description or in the comments below. Please tell me all of your favorite comfort food recipes. I'd love to find some great recipes that people have. One of my other favorites is chili. A lot of people do chili millions of different ways. That's probably one of the recipes I am going to conquer in the future. But please put in the description below or in the comments below your favorite comfort food, because I would love to start looking for comfort food recipes. I've decided I'm going to split my broadcasts into sweets and comfort foods and maybe try like series. So a sweet series, bariatric sweet foods, and then bariatric comfort foods. I've been thinking about things like cinnamon rolls and, you know, all those great sweet favorites that you don't get all the time. And then comfort foods like your chili, hamburger helper. I know a lot of people love hamburger helper as their comfort food. Things like that maybe we can make a little bit more bariatric friendly and a little bit less just bad for you in general, just a little bit more good for you. So let's go ahead and get started. So how we started this recipe is I'm preheating my oven to 400 degrees. It's actually just finished preheating now. And we're making mashed potatoes. So I have a large pot over high heat. Actually, the pot's not on. That's helpful. All right, so now that the water is coming up to a boil, what we're going to do is we're just going to add our 6 cubed and cooked. We're going to add our 6 cubed and peeled potatoes to the boiling water. There is already some salt in the water. I had it that way before it started boiling, so okay. There we go. So we have the potatoes started. One of the great things about this recipe is it's actually telling me what to mix with the mashed potatoes to make them more flavorful, not just plain butter and milk, and that's it, and that's your mashed potatoes, and live with it. Which is not horrible. Don't get me wrong. I love butter. I love milk. I love potatoes. It's all good. But this gives you some flavor ideas, which I really like about this recipe. It's one of the reasons I picked this one. So what we've done is just in the large pot over medium-high heat, we have the potatoes cooking in the water. They're going to come up to a boil, and then we're going to let them boil for 12 to 15 minutes, just until they're fork tender to make our mash. And then while that is coming up, we're going to make our turkey mixture. So what we have here is we have the turkey. What we want to do is we want to take the turkey and we want to, over medium-high heat, it says in oil. I'm not going to use any oil because, again, I'm just trying to be a little bit lower fat in this recipe. It's one of the reasons I'm using turkey. So I'm not going to use any oil. I'm just going to take this turkey. It's about 1.5 pounds. I'm going to cook it over medium heat until it is browned. And I'm going to use this fancy dancy tool that I got from Epicure. I'm sure you can get them anywhere. It's just a meat separator thing that you use for like hamburger helper and stuff. I'm going to use that to cook my turkey. And I'll be back in about 5 minutes until this is all nicely cooked up, and then we will add our vegetables. All right, everyone. Okay, so here is the turkey mixture. I've just cooked it until it's just no longer pink. I'm not trying to make it, brown or anything. I'm just making it so it's no longer pink and it becomes this nice crumbly texture. So that's how that looks. And then what we're going to add to this is we're going to add a couple of our spices. So this calls for thyme and sage. So 1 teaspoon of each, thyme and sage. So I have my thyme here. Now this is ground thyme. It actually does, the original recipe called for fresh. I don't keep fresh herbs in my house in the middle of winter. I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't have any. So I'm going to use a little bit less than it calls for, a little bit less than a teaspoon of thyme because I don't want to overpower the recipe. And same with the sage. So it calls for a full teaspoon. I'm going to do a little bit less, maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon of the sage. Now with these, at the same time as these spices, we're going to add so I have 2 cloves of garlic that has been minced. So there's our minced garlic. You can get minced garlic already minced up in a little container in your old grocery store, which is super helpful for times like this. Or you can get a garlic crusher, which is what we have, and crush it yourself, whatever you'd like. I have about 1.25 cups of just baby carrots that I've cut up, but any carrots peeled and cut up. And then 1 medium onion peeled and cut and diced. And I'm using a can of peas. So this is just a can of sweet peas. If you don't have canned peas or you don't want to use canned peas, you can go with frozen peas. That's no big deal, no difference at all. And we're going to cook this up for about 5 minutes over medium heat, just until the onions start to turn translucent and the carrots are a little bit softer. So we're going to go ahead and cook this over medium-high for 5 minutes. Now, as you guys can see here, this is what it looks like. As you can see, the onions are becoming a little bit more translucent and the carrots are not as hard. So you're going to see that they're going to get kind of a fond. I learned that word from Chef John at foodwishes.com. I love him. And that's like this brown bits that are stuck on the bottom and the sides of the pan. So we're going to deglaze the pan with 3/4 cup of wine. So we're going to add that in and we're going to put that over high heat just for 2 minutes to help deglaze the pan and get all that yumminess off the sides and bottom, because you want that. That's where the flavor is in that fond. Okay, everyone, so we've allowed that to deglaze the pan for about 2 minutes there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add 3 tablespoons of flour or cornstarch, whatever you prefer. I'm just using plain all-purpose flour, but you can use any kind of thickening agent. You can even use that bistro gravy thickener specific for gravies for this as well, which I believe is just cornstarch and flour combined. But anyway, so we're just going to get this all over everything. Then we're going to stir it up, make sure everything is coated. Right. So as you can see now, when you do this in the bottom, there's no more wine or anything that kind of leaks out. You can see that it's all kind of mixed in with the meat and everything, which is exactly what we want. So now we're going to add 3/4 cup of low sodium turkey, chicken, or vegetable broth, whatever you want. I was going to go with chicken broth, but we didn't have any. So I had some vegetable broth on hand, which is what I'm using. But your turkey broth, your chicken broth, or your vegetable broth should be fine in this recipe. And then we're going to let this cook and thicken for another 5 minutes. And then that will be it for the mince part that goes inside the shepherd's pie. All right, so 5 more minutes on high. Here we go. All right, everybody, so that is our stovetop prep work is complete. So I've taken the potatoes off and drained them in the sink, and I've got the entire mixture here. As you can see, it's a nice thick mixture with a very thick sauce to it. You do this on the bottom, the sauce doesn't all crowd in. So it's a great thick sauce. I'm going to be putting this into a casserole dish. You can put it right into your oven in a cast iron pan like this one, but I want to be able to measure out a measure of mine for my bariatric measurement, so I'm just going to put it all in a pan that I can flatten it out in. I managed to get it all out, so that's good. Okay, so now we're just going to flatten this all out in the pan. However you'd like, any size pan you'd like, as this recipe does call for quite a lot of ground turkey and vegetables and such. I'm putting it in a 13 by 9 pan, but you could use a smaller pan if you want it to be thicker, if you were making the recipe less. There we go. I have this lovely empty pot. That was the pot I cooked the potatoes in. We're just going to add the potatoes back in. They've been drained. Drained potatoes, we're going to add them back in. Now this recipe actually calls for a specific recipe for the potatoes. So the first thing is some kosher salt. I just have regular table salt here, which I'm sure is fine. It says just a pinch is what it says, so it's fine. And then we're going to do a 1/4 cup of milk. A 1/4 cup measure here. And this is just skim milk, regular everyday skim milk, nothing special about it. There's my 1/4 cup of skim milk. It also calls for a 1/4 cup of plain yogurt. So I'm using my YoPro Skier plain yogurt that I enjoy. Whatever plain yogurt you enjoy, as long as it's flavorless, should be just fine. Then some freshly ground black pepper. Okay, now I'm just going to mash this. Now most people would just use a potato masher, but I'm lazy. So I'm going to use my handy dandy hand mixer. Forgot what it's called for a second there. What is it? There we go. I'm trying not to dip the cord in the food. That's great. Don't put that on camera. Okay, so that's what the potatoes look like. Now, this recipe calls for a cup of cheese, and it says to put half of it in the potato mixture and mix it, which is what I'm going to do. Oh, set that down for now. All right. Now we're just going to put this on top of the meat mixture, just like any other shepherd's pie you've made in your life. Of course, I can't find a scoop to do it with now. There we go. It's a very old Tupperware spatula, my goodness. I can't tell you how long I've had this. Okay. What I like to do is I just dollop it all over, personally, and dollop, so I'm going to try to not disturb the mixture underneath very much. It's going to be easier to spread out the more spread out your dollops are. This is why I do YouTube videos, by the way, because I enjoy talking to myself. And if I'm talking to the camera, I can pretend like I'm not actually just talking to myself. All right, so at this point in our lives, I'm sure we've all seen some fancy footwork with the shepherd's pie. We've all seen those little shepherd's pie with all the little tiny, I don't know, hill marks all over it. It looks like a beautiful mown field. Yeah, it looks like they piped it, exactly. Like they piped it on top with like a frosting piper. You can cheat that. This is how you can do that. So as you can see, I didn't use a whole lot of potatoes. The original recipe calls for 1.5 pounds. I only used 6 medium-sized potatoes, so Might look like a little bit less than the way you like it. You know, adjust to your taste. But the potato is the biggest non-bariatric friendly part of this recipe, so hence the less potato. That's what I'm trying to do. All right, so I got that all spread out. Now I'm just going to try and make this look all fancy by just forking it. I'm forking it. Okay, there's that. Now we put the rest of the cheese on top. Okay, nice and spread it out a little bit. There you go. There is your shepherd's pie. Now we're going to put it in our preheated 400-degree oven for about 30 minutes is what the recipe calls for. So we're going to put this in our 400-degree oven for 30 minutes. I'm going to do that now, and we'll see you guys in 30 minutes when it's ready. We're back. So what we've done is I like this is just a reveal thing. I like mine with like a nice brown crunchy potato on top. You know that look? Let me show you. All right, so ta-da! So we put it in the broiler. For about 3 minutes to get this like nice browning going on top where all the little spikes are kind of browned up. Delicious. So what we had to do was we did cook it for 30 minutes in the oven, and then we put it under the broiler for 2 minutes, and it sat here for about 3 minutes. And that's just to, you know, allow it to kind of all go back together, because as you know, sometimes a little bit of liquid can come to the top. If you weren't aware of that, especially when you're making something like shepherd's pie, sometimes the liquid can rise up to the top and you have a little bit of liquid around the sides. So we've let this sit for about 3 minutes until the liquid kind of died down again. And we're going to go ahead and try it now. I'd like to see your comments below what you think. If you try it, let me know if you tried it. Tag me on Instagram and Twitter and all that with your pictures of your version. I'm going to take my little tiny serving here. Oh, I don't know how I'm going to get this out without making it look a mess. I don't know why I did it on that side and not the other side. It would have been easier, but anywho. All right. There you go. There's your beautiful turkey shepherd's pie. It smells delicious. You can really smell the sage, actually. The sage is the star of the show here. Let's go ahead and get a fork, and I shall try it and tell you what I think. This might be disgusting, so let's see together. It smells so good. I don't think it's going to be disgusting at all. Get a little bit of that cheese, a little bit of that potato on my fork, a little bit of beef, a little bit of carrot, a little bit of everything here. Beef. Even I thought it was beef. It's turkey. I don't know when I made it. I should know. Ooh. Very, very good. It's definitely turkey. It doesn't replace beef by any stretch of the imagination, but it's very, very good. This is a very good alternative to shepherd's pie. I could totally eat this every day for the rest of my life and be perfectly happy. And shepherd's pie, if you ask my husband, is my absolute favorite food. I beg him to make it all the time. So there you go. My turkey version of shepherd's pie, actually more delicious turkey version of shepherd's pie, but I've made it and added my little changes here and there. So if you like it, comment, subscribe, like, all that great stuff. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, here on YouTube. And that's everything for tonight, folks. Have a great night. See you later. Bye. I'm just eating now.